In the meantime, let's examine the voting exercise and other related issues. And we're joined live now by the former Lagos coordinator, Take It Back movement, Iroyin. Also joining us are Executive Director, Center for Rights and Grassroot Initiative, Nelson Ekujumi, and convener Coalition of Civil Society Organizations for Good Governance, Shino Lori Mikon. They are both in Osun State observing the elections, and all of them will join us. Let me start with you. Bring us up to date with so far what we know, and starting with you, Shina. From what you've seen on the ground, how would you assess the credibility and transparency of the voting process so far, particularly around accreditation? There's been issues about not enough manpower in terms of polling unit officers, as well as the slow efficiency of the beavers, and also voter access as well. That's voter inclusion. So far, your assessment.
Well, thank you very much for having me. My name is Nelson Ekujumi. I wouldn't know if you have another Nelson. I've monitored the process from 7 a.m. till now. And unfortunately, your correspondent, whom you just spoke to, was talking about there being only one beavers. I think it is important for us to understand how our election works. And it is that for every polling unit, there's always one beavers allocated to it. The only reason why a beavers will be changed is when the one allocated to that polling unit malfunctions. So the issue at hand here in Osun State is that there has been a massive turnout of voters that the electoral umpire is struggling to cope with. This election is a reaffirmation of our people's confidence in democracy. So today, we have seen people come out. We have seen the beavers machine accredit. We have seen in most of the polling units I've gone to, I've been to 3 local governments as I speak to you. I've been to Egbedore, Oshogbo, and Oloruda. I've only seen one polling unit where the beavers could not authenticate one voter, just one. Others have been, and I also took count of the time it takes to accredit and for a voter to vote. It's just about 3 minutes. So the turnout is an issue for concern. And let us also clear this, which you also need to help us escalate. Voting closes at 2:30 p.m. But if you are on the queue, even if it is till 12 a.m. August 16, you will be allowed to vote. That was the promise from INEC. So any voter on the queue before the close of vote of the polling station officially at 2:30 p.m. will be allowed to vote. So the voting official closing time is not 4:30 p.m. like maybe you erroneously made. It's 2:30 p.m. But if you're on the queue, until the last man on the queue exercises his of our franchise, polling stations will not close. As we speak to you, voting is ongoing in some places right now. They are counting the ballots. They are sorting it out, and they will begin counting. But the noticeable feature about this election is that the voters have come out in very, very large numbers. And again, in polling stations, we have observed that unlike in previous elections where you find just one party agent, in this election, you have not less than 7 party agents present at the polling stations. And you also have an avalanche of security personnel present. And you have motorized security patrols. So the election has gone on smoothly and has gone on peacefully. The beavers you have mentioned about has functioned efficiently.
Mr. Ekujumi,
if I would take yes.
Mr. Ekujumi, let me call you here and just help us. I want you to help me understand the mathematics here, right? About 5,130 beavers devices was assigned to Osun State, right? And we have over 3,000, that's 3,763 polling units. So on average, we might have two beavers at a polling station. And now you're saying that the voter turnout was massive, which is what we've always wanted when it comes to tackling voter apathy. But when you have a accredited voter register at about 1.9 million for Osun State, do we not see the inefficiency here at 2 beavers for each polling unit? That is, I mean, given on the numbers, right, and the variables, right, that means some polling units may get just one beavers to service 1.9 million. say 60% of that number comes out. Does 3,000, or should I say 5,000 polling beavers, can it serve those people? Don't you see the inefficiency here? Is the math correct?
Absolutely not. You are very, very wrong. It is a fact that every polling unit must have a voters register of not more than 500. And that is why you have polling stations subdivided into polling or into voting points. Every polling station must have a beavers assigned to it. The 1,000 beavers you mentioned is inclusive of replacement beavers that have been, put on standby in case there's a malfunctioning of any of the beavers. No polling station will have 2 beavers. I think you need to check your facts. It is not about inefficiency. It is about the fact that you cannot control, technology. Anything could happen. You and I, in our homes, we watch DSTV. We use the telecommunication services. A time, somebody will be standing close to you, and you are making a call to the person beside you, and it is telling you it's unavailable. And the person will be like, my phone is on. Maybe you can see it. You watch DSTV. Sorry that I'm mentioning their name. And when there's a weather fluctuation, the screen goes off. It tells you not available. So what we are saying here is that for every polling station, there's a beavers allocated to it. But for those polling stations, there are beavers, as at the time the observers had the stakeholders engagement with INEC, we had 600, INEC confirmed to us that they have 664 beavers machine on standby for any eventuality. That tells you clearly that INEC recognizes that, look, we don't have control, but if anything goes wrong, we are ready to quickly move in and correct it. So it is not about inefficiency. It is not. You need to understand how our election works and, understand it and be able to educate the populace better.
All right. So
you cannot put 2 villas to 1 polling station.
Right.
It's impossible.
I think it's also unfair that you would come on air and say that, knowing fully well that since the break of dawn, our reporters have been scattered across Osun State in different polling units across the local government areas. And what we've seen so far is a mass number of both pregnant women, elderly, plus PWDs who are waiting, either sitting at the open air on the grass without places to sit down, or how the seats are allocated to the elderly and the pregnant, right? And they have not been able to cast their vote. And I think at the end of the day, what really matters here is the efficiency and not about pointing fingers. Well, again, let me quickly bring in our correspondent who is also on the field, and maybe, just as maybe different perspective. Maybe we're seeing things differently, right? And let's quickly bring in Mercy Babajide, who is live on the field at this time. But unfortunately, I've been informed that we have to go on a short break. Let's quickly go on a short break. When we come back, we'll bring in Mercy Babajide, our correspondent. You're watching News Now on East Central Television. Stay with us. You're welcome back. How efficient would you say, INEC have been, especially as well as security agencies have been, in responding to cases of, intimidation and voter, inducement?
Well, from my own observation and my team, we went around, as I'm speaking to you, I'm still on the streets of Osun State. In Osogbo, I'm at Yolayemi, Odidi, Odidowo. That's where I am now as I'm speaking to you. And we have not had reports of voters' intimidation. And if you ask anybody, the turnout is a pointer to the fact that nobody could have intimidated anybody, because the polling stations from Egbedore to Osogbo to Olorunda, the 3 local governments that I've observed so far, the turnout has been very massive. So if there have been voters in intimidation, these people would not have been out there. And again, this election is local. The people know themselves. People who live in the same community, who live in the same street, they know themselves in and out. So I wonder who could have been intimidating them. And even with the so-called alleged intimidation, they could still come out in these numbers. Like your correspondent rightly said, in the very few polling units, sorting and counting and declaration of result and announcement of result at the polling units will happen at 2:30. so long as you are on the queue before the close of polls officially. But in some other polling units, it will extend far beyond that, because we saw the stress, the struggle by voters to cast their vote, in the early hours of the day. Then you talk about the credibility of the election or the conduct of INEC. The conduct of INEC has never been in doubt, except for the fact that some persons, some interests, love to badmouth INEC without substantiating it with fact. You and I know very well that INEC deploys personnel who are ad hoc staff, who are members of the National Youth Service Corps. And if you want to do investigative journalism, you can do a research on any one of them and ask them, were you told to go and work for one X party or Y party? And the answer will tell you clearly that INEC has been on top of its game. But people, because of the nature of our society, where bad news spreads faster than lightning, but when it is good news, we tend to, mourn over it. So as far as I'm concerned and my team, the election has been well conducted. It is not in doubt that there might be glitches here and there, but I can tell you for free that in places where the beavers had problems, it was just maybe in a population of voters of 500, we just had 1 or 2. And in examination, once you score 70, you have an A. It does not matter whether the man sitting beside you also scored a 95. You are both going to get an A. So in this election, INEC has performed excellently well. The security agencies have been marvelous. We have seen security at the polling stations. We have seen motorized security. Yesterday, I was out till this morning at 1 a.m. I saw police checkpoints. I saw checkpoints by the military. But lo and behold, when I came out exactly at 5 a.m., I wanted to go to the rack. I couldn't find one soldier on the streets again. And I was like, where did they disappear to? And somebody told me that the deployment is being done professionally. They don't want the people to see the security architecture on ground so that they will be intimidated and be afraid to come out. And that is why you have seen that the people themselves are out there. So if anybody is telling you any story, it is for us to ask for facts, for evidence to substantiate.
Right. So evidence to substantiate. I mean, you seem to have glowing reviews. So for this process, so clearly you do have evidence to substantiate. So I do have to ask you, based off of what you've seen, are you seeing voters being turned away because of beavers' authentication failures, or were you able to document those cases?
There was a polling station at Okefia. A man was putting on a cassock of the Christian faith. The machine could not authenticate him, and he was told to step out and allow others to exercise that, because you cannot keep on, because of one man, you keep hundreds of people waiting. You disrupt the process. People will get very angry and agitated, and every other person was, carrying out their own responsibility to exercise their franchise. And at the end of the day, I think the man will be asked to come back again and see if the machine will be able to identify him, because without the PVC, without the beavers machine authenticating you, you cannot vote. It will amount to overvoting. The law is very clear. So I think it is important for us to understand, deeply the workings of our electoral system. When people try to say, the result, it was manipulated. No, we have passed that stage. We had that in the years of the Olusegun Obasanjo and Morisi INEC. Today, if the beavers does not authenticate you as a voter, if you vote, at the end of the day, when the beavers machine is, fact-checked, and you have 35 accredited voters, and the ballot papers is 36, it means one man has voted more than what the beavers has accredited. Automatically, INEC cancels that election due to overvoting. That's the fact of our electoral history, except if anybody wants to live want to be an Alice in Wonderland. So the technology that INEC has deployed with the professionalism of the security agencies, in polling stations, you had not less than 6 to 7 security personnel, police, road safety, civil defense corps, motor traffic wardens. So everybody, in fact, the election has been conducted as if they were celebrating Osun festival. Because the people know themselves, like I said earlier on, if anybody is coming to cause trouble in any polling station, he or she must be coming from outside the locality.
Right.
Because this is a local election. It's about the people.
All right. It's very interesting that you have to use the Lewis Carroll's 1865 book of Alice in Wonderland. Well, there's a famous quote from that book. Unfortunately, I cannot quote it But I must say many thanks for coming on. I appreciate you for doing this with us.